Hey everybody, it's Shelley Bosch from Parent Dashboard, and I am thrilled today because we have a very special event in the Parent Dashboard community where we've got Dr. Marcia Nathai-Balkissoon helping us moving from a state of crisis to a state of joy. And we're really lucky to have her. I, as a special needs parent, I'm not sure. I mean, every parent has overwhelm, and every parent sort of needs clarity. But sometimes when you're a special needs parent, you're running around. You've got like multiple doctor's appointments. You've got caregivers that come in and out and leave or not. You've got sibling relationship dynamics. You've got financial issues. You've got health issues. Frequent trips to the hospital or crises. You've got all sorts of issues with the educational system and trying to get resources for your kids, and it just can be a lot. So really what today is about, and I remember, I still feel that way, but I remember being at different points in my journey and really kind of getting a sense of overwhelm, of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do next, of kind of a loss of almost your sense of self, because you're just trying to get your child everything they need all the time. And your sole focus, of course, is on that. But that means that your focus isn't on you and isn't on your long-term picture for yourself and your family. And sometimes you can lose yourself a little bit, particularly when you've done that the whole time. I'm currently at the adult transition stage where I'm helping my son transition to adulthood, and it's sort of like, oh, what am I going to do afterwards? So not that it ever really ends, but anyway, I wish that I had someone like Marcia, who's here with us today, to be able to help me navigate and keep me grounded and figure out how to get, like, you can have the snippets of joys, and you celebrate with your kids on all of the smallest wins, and you have happiness in your life, but sometimes it's a little still imbalanced. And I wish that I'd been able to get better balance earlier and been able to get better clarity on how to keep things light. It can get very, very heavy. And so I'm thrilled today to be able to bring to you Marcia, all the way from Trinidad. Thank you so much, Marcia, for joining us today on Parent Dashboard.
Shelley, thanks for the invitation to come here. I am totally on board with all that you've said. It is our experience. The one thing that really empowered me to start the shift and to start thinking that overwhelm didn't have to be where it was at all the time was realizing that if I felt overwhelmed and if I was judging myself because I felt like there were so many other things I wasn't getting to, that sense of self-judgment came from a place of caring and loving my child so much. That took a lot of stigma away from it. Instead of seeing myself as failing, I saw instead how much love and care was causing me to put everything I had into the person who needed it the most in our family. And that's exactly what we do as special needs parents, often from necessity as much as choice.
Absolutely. And that sense of guilt kind of changes and grows at different things as they go along different paths. Like you have you're just noticing something wrong stage, and then the diagnosis stage, and then getting them their initial treatments in the younger parts of school years, and then puberty, and then into adulthood. And every single time there seems to be something to beat yourself up about, whether it's you can't negotiate with the school to get what they need, or you can't get the doctors to be able to really listen to you, or all of these pieces that land for us emotionally that really, in a way, don't really even have to do with the child, but have to do with the child because how we manage ourselves really impacts how they can grow. And so we need to be on top of it for ourselves and take care of ourselves. So can you tell us some of the experiences you had as going through, and finding out, maybe you can kind of talk about the different stages of the journey, and your experiences of how that's changed for you. over
Okay.
time?
So my daughter actually was born without any diagnoses of special needs. But she came to my bed, I was drugged out. And for some reason, I hadn't done this for my son, but for some reason, I started counting fingers on her. And in my drugged out state, I kept getting 11. And I was like, 11 isn't the number, it should be 10. So I kept recounting and kept getting 11. And called my husband over and said, listen, I think the drugs are getting to me. Could you just double check these numbers for me? And he did not answer me. He started to cry. My husband is a biology teacher. So he told me, Marsh, if your child has 11 fingers, if there's something different in the number, it often means that there's internal damage to organs. And the doctors had not checked and had not told us anything. So we were discovering it and telling them.
Mm.
So he went off in search of the pediatric doctor and said, listen, I need you to do a proper check of my child, check those internal organs for me. And the next morning, the doctor came all sad and stayed and said, we have a problem. But they could not diagnose the problem. He just knew it was a problem with her heart. And so it took us 18 days to get a diagnosis, but that diagnosis was 4 issues in her heart that we were told in our country could not be fixed. In other countries, they would fix that immediately upon birth. But in our case, they told us, you just have to live with this until it becomes a crisis situation.
Right.
And only at that point will we tell you, okay, rush her to surgery now. And by the way, in another country. So we started with that. We started with a lot of fear and not knowing and guilt, because I started to ask, what have I done wrong? Have I not eaten the proper things? Have I somehow caused birth defects in my child, right? So many of us special needs parents have gone through that kind of questioning.
Mm-hmm. And even sometimes the medical profession kind of, allows that kind of thinking. So it's not just all in our heads sometimes.
That never entered my mind that did come up. When she was 8 months old, she actually went blue. She started to have cyanotic spells because her heart could no longer get that oxygen to her body effectively. And she was at risk for stroke and seizure. So we went over to the States where we had the surgery done. And the strangest thing happened. The nurse asked me if I was married to my cousin. So her interpretation of why my child was sick was that it was genetic.
Oh, yeah. Because clearly you've done something, right?
So luckily, in inverted commas, my mind was elsewhere. And so I didn't give credence to this kind of thing, but that is abusive. And that really breaks parents' hearts, right? We already deal with so much.
Yeah.
Worrying about our child, blaming ourselves, maybe even blaming others, right? Mm-hmm. Anyway, at that hospital visit, while she was recovering from the open heart surgery, which was successful, a doctor pulled a tube out from her heart and she bled out. Oh. That caused her to flatline and to lose oxygen to her brain for 20 minutes, which caused severe brain damage, loss of all her senses, and the ability to suck and swallow. And then officially, she became a special needs child.
Wow. So just dealing with that kind of intense crisis and it's a slow motion one in a sense, but those are the kinds of complex situations, like medically, and then sometimes we have parents with behavioral need, complexity, and then sometimes we have, and then there's sort of the end where it's gifted and there's complexities because of the giftedness as well. So the sense of overwhelm that happens, whether it's guilt-based or, sadness and grief and loss-based, or, like whatever the source of or just pure logistics, right? Like organizing all of the care costs and organizing.
Really have, yeah.
Yeah, you can, I don't know, can you speak to like the sense of loss of control? Essentially, it's out of your control. The doctors are in charge, or the school's in charge, or the social workers are in charge, or your bank is in charge sometimes. So how do we sort of take back our power? Like, can you walk us through some things, and can you describe the kind of coaching you do? We didn't actually kind of introduce you properly, in the sense of like what you do with special needs parents, and how you can help them take their power back.
So this journey of finding myself again took about 7 or 8 years. For me, just to do the inner work, and it's so much of it is hidden, but we need to figure out that we matter too, and not guilt ourselves into thinking that we take something away from our child by seeing to our needs, because by filling up our cup, and we all have heard this, by filling up our cup, there's more to pour out for everybody else that needs service from us. But that's just a tagline often in our lives, because physically, there's not enough time. I kept experiencing that I had this never-ending to-do list. And I could never do everything on the to-do list. So the thing that always fell off the bottom of the to-do list were the things that were mattered to me as an individual. Right? I never made it onto my to-do list. And I think that happens so often for special needs parents.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, just the inability to because there's also a bit of stigma associated with, if it's a bit taboo in a sense to say, hang on, disabled child, I need to take care of myself. Like it doesn't feel right in a sense. There's a bit of societal kind of like pressure around that.
There also is this feeling from a lot of special needs parents that if I say I feel trapped in this situation, I couldn't be a caring mother because I resent my child. That's not true. We can love our child and give our child everything, but this loss of sense of self, this loss of ability to even put aside a little bit of care for ourselves, energy for ourselves, is really debilitating. And that's why I focus on, as my big focus, helping people move out of overwhelm and create a fuller, more balanced and rounded life, because we all deserve more. And so, yes, I help special needs parents do this, but I also do it for professionals who are juggling so many things that also make them feel that they are last on their own list.
Right, because I kind of find that anything that comes up in the special, it's sort of like complex needs and special needs basically are just kind of like a big magnifying glass. Like those issues exist in the world. It's just that they're in the forefront focus. And so, it just kind of like magnifies everything and makes things more. So it's always, I always say, oh, well, this is good for all parents, but, also good just for, to really deal with the crisis level stuff that special needs parents are dealing with. So can you, what do you have tools, or what would you like to talk about in terms of how parents can take back their power, or other tools that they can have to kind of like ground themselves and bring some of that back in?
So I have several tools that I teach and that I lean into for myself. The first thing is just taking time to reflect on where you are. So there are two things that I'll share. One is just asking yourself, where am I right now in my journey? And that doesn't mean only identifying what's wrong or what's missing, because again, that's coming from the negative space, right? First, it's important to start with what's really lighting me up, what's wonderful in my life, and how does it make me feel, right?
That's really hard sometimes too, because you're experiencing crisis, the loss, the impacts, the no's, the can'ts, and the you're seeing frequently, your child isn't meeting the development milestones, or you're unconsciously comparing sometimes, and you don't mean to, and it doesn't that it doesn't make them less valuable, but there's that kind of sense of not keeping up, not good enough, just inherently, right? So yeah, continue on.
That's it exactly. So we often wake in the morning. I actually talked about this in my book. I would wake every morning, and as soon as my eyes cracked open, this realization that I was reliving the same day, it was about to go exactly the same. I had everything else dropping on me, and it felt really heavy before I could even take one step out of the bed. But one day I woke up, and Emma's laughter just floated through the house. It's a squealing, joyful, full laugh that came to me. And I was like, well, here you are going, oh, poor me. Here we are again, stuck in the same rut. And the child who it actually happened to, the child who actually had the loss, sees none of her loss.
Right. And frequently we hear self-advocates on the spectrum, or with the disability saying, like, why are you guys crying? Like, why are you martyring yourselves as parents? Like, why is it so impactful for you? And it's tricky because, you have to be in the right place mentally and in order to provide care. And also, yeah, get into that place of gratitude. And it's so tricky when you're constantly in crisis. So
Yeah.
how do we flip out of a victim stance?
But that's exactly what I did. I realized that she was waking up every morning and living life to the fullest and believing that all that she had was all that she could give. And there was no, I wish I had, I wish I could. She did not see lack. In my case, my job as caregiver for her was about seeing what she lacked and filling the gaps. So my job was to worry and put things in place. Sure, that can still happen, but I needed to find a way to see how much supported me that I wasn't even recognizing. And one was that my child had come back after flatlining for 20 minutes. So there are big ones like that. And there are tiny, tiny ones. My favorite one is right outside of my window, is a frangipani tree. And every morning when I wake up, there's a bird in that tree singing his song. I remember when I was little in primary school, there was a song, a hymn, where we sang about God sees to the needs of the sparrow. And I reflected on that when I heard the bird that day.
Right.
This bird doesn't get up and work for a living.
Right.
It doesn't
have appointments.
He doesn't have to chase anything. He trusts that he is supported. And that has been a really massive saver for me, because it says, Marsh, you can't control what's coming your way. Worrying about what's going to come might be natural to you now, but this is something you have to work on. Because you see, when you worry, you give away all your power for the future. I can't predict what's coming or what's not coming. The only power I have to change anything is in right now.
Right. My two hands right here and now. And, I think that especially when we're in these systems that our children have to navigate to get their resources, we're always having to, like follow the processes and, engage with all these people, and it tracks us off it's easy to get distracted into, okay, well, how things should be, or what went wrong, and there's a lot of anger that crops up because, okay, well, the government should be doing this, or that should happen, and those things may be true, but separating that from our personal selves and our personal needs to be able to detach, so that level of stress that's sort of like above our pay grade anyway,
but control, right? That's
right.
all I should concern myself with. What I realized, and I it's so strange that I didn't realize it before, but I figure that most of us don't realize it. If we live constantly in the past, looking at the memories of when Emma could, my daughter actually stood for the first time the evening before that surgery. there's such a sense of loss there because she was so excited and we could barely keep her down when we were bathing her. There was such grief and loss. And I found that I could be pulled into depression if I live always in the past. And if I lived always in the future, what I was pulling myself into was anxiety.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So by letting go more, I mean, I'm not perfect and I do both of those things, but I want to shift the majority of my time. I want to be present here. I want to be trusting that things will be good, that I am supported, because looking to the past, I can't change it. I can only mourn. I do look to the past for gratitude sometimes, and that helps. But I don't look to the past for the sad things as much as I can, because that totally keeps me in a funk. And I've stopped looking to the future, because when I look to the future, I think about, I'm never going to have money to see to education for my son because everything is being used for my daughter. This has started to happen more. That has started to happen. I wonder how this is going to snowball. And we can really get into this negative Nelly mindset, right? Where it gathers and gathers on itself. And you don't want to do that because everything goes downhill from there.
Well, and then in terms of your daily experience of your life, and whether when you open your eyes or not, you can you can get up or not, or want to get up. And usually we make ourselves get up because our kids drive us. But the daily experience of your life can be vastly different if even with the same things happening, if you're in that frame. So can you, like, I understand you were thinking about having a like an example of how, like, you could take us through one of these exercises where we could do that?
Yeah. So there are a couple of different exercises that I do to help you to, first we see what's good in our lives, and then we also say, so what's missing? Where are there gaps, right? And we look at those gaps, not because we want to say, let me really break myself up about this, but let's see how we can bridge those gaps through action now, right? That's one. But a visualization is a way to really release and rebound. And so here's a simple one. I picture myself in nature, because nature really lights me up and pulls away all the stress. So I actually put a picture on if you are not somebody who can visualize well, you can use sounds. You can use just a sense of knowing or feeling, a memory of touch to help you to connect. So when I say visualize, use whichever sense helps you to connect with this, right? So picture yourself standing, and you can actually stand and do this if you want. So you stand, and I like to actually stretch my arms up. And I picture myself breathing in golden light, because I am supported. This universe, God, supports me, and he sends me so much that sustains. So as I breathe in, I picture myself breathing in that support, letting that support come in through the top of my head. And this golden light just spreads down my spine, out to every extremity, into every single cell. And I feel that golden light actually causing my cells and my limbs and my body to glow. You might start to feel your arms or your legs tingling as you do this, because you are bringing in positive expectations and positive energy. So breathe that wonderful light and healing energy in, and then breathe out. But as you breathe out, picture that energy flowing out through your feet. And let that energy contain all of the negative energy that you have, all the toxic things, all the worrisome thoughts, all the pain that you have in your joints, all of the inflammation and the illness and the sickness. Let them flow out of your feet, because your feet are like your roots, and let them sink into the earth. You know how if you pour water onto soil, soil sucks up that water? Know that the earth is sucking up your negative energy, just sucking it out. And that energy is going to be cleansed the way that the earth is going to cleanse water and send back clear water in a trickling stream. Now breathe that good energy back up through your feet from the earth. Positive energy comes, flows all the way up, fills every part of you, every single cell getting renewed by nature, by God, by divinity, by universe. And breathe out through the top of your head, all worry, all stress, all misalignment, all concern, all negativity. And repeat that for another cycle. Breathe in through the top of your head, your golden, healing, wonderful light. Feel it go into all extremities. Feel it go into every single cell. Let it out through your feet, knowing that the earth is cleansing it, pulling it out of you. And feel how light and free you are. As you practice this, within 2-3 seconds, you can help yourself to de-stress in the middle of crisis. So you all can open your eyes if they are closed.
That's amazing. Yeah. And just how much breath and internal focus can help us discharge the static that seems to build up around us, right? That if we pay attention to our own bodies and energy fields, or, selves, and, and just allow ourselves to remain connected to where we're at, then the past goes away and the future hasn't come yet, and you don't worry about it. So, and then that kind of takes the charge off your brain and stops the triggering of the fight or flight, or the catastrophization. I'm really good at that one. And allows you to really focus on, just being with your child and focusing on the task that needs to be done. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that technique. I hope everybody watches that on replay multiple times. We might even snip it out and just post it.
Totally, it totally helps in the midst of all the things that could be going wrong, right? There's something that you have an extra benefit of this for, which is, as special needs parents, we often feel very isolated. We feel like we don't have friends. The people we thought would love us may have fallen away, and we feel abandoned sometimes, right? This helps because as I draw in all of that golden energy, I know that this energy is an energy that connects everyone, and that there are others who experience the same thing I've been experiencing, and that even in my crisis, I am not alone.
Right. That is critical, especially through COVID, right? But, I remember a lot of special needs parents sort of remarking, okay, well, welcome to our world, like when shutdown happened, right? It's like, that's where we live, like, so just really isolated, and Facebook and social media becomes really important. So being able to connect about this, well, I don't know about any of you watching, but, I know I'm benefiting from this today. And if you, I would love it if you guys would just like put, I'm loving this, this helped me, or, let us know how that exercise worked for you. And I'm going to ask Marcia if I need more of this, like if I can't imagine, like doing this in, that part was like 5 minutes. And so working with you, I would love to know how to do that. And I'm sure other people would too. So if people are loving this and want to figure out how to get more from you, or learn about your book, or any of your other, services, what would something that they do be like? What have you got anything coming up, or how did they connect to you?
So you can come connect with me in my group, which is called Claiming Joy and Fulfillment, right on Facebook. And in there, I do little coaching videos, other videos and other posts that would help you to make the transition in small ways. The tool I've taught, or the tools I've taught today, have been really truncated versions that I intended to give some value here, but I can't spread them out for an hour-long session each. However, I do have a 2-day challenge coming up on the 23rd and 24th of this month. So that's it.
Self-care challenge. I think we need to do that.
And I'm actually calling it Get in the Driver's Seat, because we often feel that we aren't in the driver's seat of our life, right? It's a 2-day challenge focused on taking back control of our lives, making the things that we want of our life that we felt that there was something preventing us from doing. But I can promise you it is possible. It does not mean that you get to do it the way you might have envisioned it before you became a special needs parent. But that is where resilience comes in. That's where hope comes in. That's where flexibility comes in. And those are the skills that our children are helping us to learn anyway. So we are going to use those skills to help us to say, okay, what's the vision that I have for my life? And when I say vision, what's the audacious vision? The one that people will say, and this happened to me. It's already hard for you in your life. Give up.
Right. Like you almost kind of like don't dare to dream anymore, right? Like it's sort of like, this is all that's ever going to be. And I just need to get used to that, because you don't want to go through that constant, up and down about,
Right.
hope and then not hoping, right? So you're talking about setting a realistic picture of the good life that you could have, even
And
so.
I'm talking about perhaps setting an unrealistic vision.
Okay. And then working yourself to it. Okay, cool.
Stretching beyond what I could do right now. I don't get to change my life unless I stop doing things the way I do them now. So if I keep saying, well, this is how I do it, and given how I do it, this is all I can envision, that's playing small. You need to stretch and you need to break your boundaries. So audacious visioning is part of what we're going to be talking about. And then deciding on what's going to come first, what's going to come second, because you can't do all of the audacious vision in 1 year. But in the space of 4 years, I think, I got a PhD. That PhD took 10 years while my child was special needs. But in that space, I got a PhD, I published a book, I started my coaching business, and the list goes on and on. One at a time. We don't have to be all things. We don't have to do it perfectly. And so that is the thread that runs through it all. Progress, not perfection. Gentleness with ourselves, allowing ourselves to fail and not hitting ourselves. I literally used to do this and saying, you're stupid. We don't need any more judgment and pressure on ourselves. So knowing what to go for first in that vision, having a prioritization kind of structure, shaping a plan to create the changes you want in a way that will fit into your demanding life.
Well, and then, go ahead.
Sorry. And then ultimately, that helps you to shift into balance, joy, and this is the hard one, abundance.
Well, right, because it's sort of really hard to kind of picture it. And I love the audacious bit, because sometimes it is, again, as, oh, well, if my child doesn't have, I shouldn't have. But in a sense, for me, it's almost like when you're dealing with behavioral issues. If you don't model for your child the positivity and the striving and the audacious vision and goal, and saying, no, this is what we deserve, this is how it should be, we should be happy and not in all of this crisis and crap with the systems, then they're not ever going to have the possibility of that in their mind. And there is only the system sort of level of stuff. But picking, we stretch ourselves every day beyond any means, and so we know we can stretch. So now it's just a matter of stretching for for ourselves to model for our kids what they can stretch to, because if we say, you know, anyone can do anything and you should be able to participate equally in society, and we have to model that for them.
This was big because we often put at the center, and I think it should be that way, our special needs child or children. But if we have other children, those children often don't get the best of us, right? We see to them, certainly we love them, but even they focus more of their attention on their sibling, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So interesting thing that happened is when I sold my first coaching client, when I got my very first coaching client, I remember going in and telling my son, I just made my first sale. And I had told him before I went to the sale that I was going to make my first sale. I was really pumped. And he humored me. He just was like, oh, good luck, mommy. That sort of thing. Like, go on, little girl. That sort of thing. Because he didn't.
Sure.
And my job is to support mom, was what he was doing. But I came out right after and I said, I've just made my first sale, right? And he said, oh, very good, mom. And he patted me like a grandfather would pat. Again, humoring me. And I told him how much. And his eyes opened big and he sat up and he looked at me with a newfound respect, like she's capable of that.
Right.
That built something big in me, but it also said to him, hey, my mom can change our situation.
Right. And that I'm important too, and I can change my own situation.
That's exactly it. It ties into what you were saying. It's about giving the example that our child needs to help him to live life differently because he gets to see life differently. Right? I can be down in a hole. Doesn't mean I can't climb out.
Yeah.
And I help others climb out while I'm doing it for myself. That's exactly what I'm doing.
And yes, we all need to work on all the systems issues, and yes, we need to advocate, and yes, there needs to be all of that, but for our own personal lives, our own personal joy, our own personal experience, our own personal happiness, our children's happiness, our spouse's happiness, the siblings' happiness, we need to have that ability to move to joy. And I really want to thank you so much for sharing just a little snippet of some of the tools to be able to do that. And so if you found any of this useful, I encourage you all, I'm sure Marcia will post, or you can just, if you're interested in, it's on the August 23rd and 24th is your event, is that right?
And I'll make sure to tell you when I have the link set up so people can register, so we can perhaps in your group and elsewhere.
Sure, we'll put the links in there. So just if you're watching this on replay, just type me too, and I'm sure Marcia will follow up with you personally if you'd like. And if you have any questions or needs, and then we're also going to put a link to Marcia's book called Lighting the Path, which is a fantastic read. So we'll make sure that you can get access to that as well. Thank you, Marcia, so much for being here today and to talking about this very personal issue, in a sense, in such a enlightening and supportive way. And thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you so much, because you inspire me as well. I love being in your group and learning so many others who help our community.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we will have this posted in the group on replay, and we will catch up with you guys next time. We do have, this was a special event, thanks to Marcia, and next week we will have our regular monthly event. It's a back to school homeschooling, how to do homeschool lessons, thinking out of the box for complex needs. So make sure you sign up for that, or join us in the parent dashboard group with Jen Dick, who's a really experienced homeschool teacher and involved with many Facebook groups around homeschooling and those sorts of supports, because it's almost time for back to school. All right. Thank you, Marcia. Take good care, and we'll talk with everybody soon. Bye.